Welcome to New York City around the year 1900. The city is growing quickly. In 1898, the boroughs of Queens, Brooklyn, and the Bronx were incorporated to form the city of Greater New York. Starting in 1832, horse-pulled streetcar lines sprung up, like the New York and Harlem Railroad. To ease the growing problems, future transport would follow the route of the rest of the city, heading upwards. Despite being so short-sighted and rushed, over the next few decades, more and more companies opened elevated lines, like the one on 9th Avenue in Manhattan. Despite the benefits created by rapid transit, the steam trains running along created so much pollution and noise that many Manhattanites opposed it. They also casted a permanent shadow on the street, heavily discouraging pedestrian traffic. Of course, many in the public, including business owners, disliked this rail, and they joined the Not in My Backyard movement, something that still exists today. And judging by the reaction of the government, their outcry worked, banning steam trains below 42nd Street. So in February 1900, a contract was arranged by the Rapid Transit Construction Company, later becoming the IRT, for the completion of a New York City subway. And ground was broken a month later on March 24th. After just 4 years of work, the IRT opened the first underground line on October 27, 1904. Yes, that's fast. And it wasn't just one or two stations, it went all the way from City Hall on the 6th to 151st Street on the 1. That's 8 miles. And one more thing, you'll notice it featured the route of the modern-day shuttle. So beginning IRT history done, let's talk about the shuttle opening. But first, a little bit more background on why the shuttle exists. The shuttle opening was a massive event, just a bit unlike Godzilla. To clarify something, this was the original line, but in 1913 the IRT and BRT agreed to split this one heavily used line into two, with two parallel routes and a shuttle line to connect both. While meant to be temporary, on August 1st, 1918, proper shuttle service began between Grand Central and Times Square, and it hasn't permanently stopped since. In over 100 years. As I mentioned, the first day of the shuttle being open was chaotic. Overcrowding was a serious threat because of the narrow island platforms. And unlike now in 2023, all 4 tracks were operating, not just the 2. It's important to remember that the modern-day 7 train didn't yet reach Times Square. It came along in March 1927 on brand new tracks. So while many view the shuttle as a support system for the busy 7, historically it was vice versa. Remember how there were 4 tracks in the shuttle, 2 local, 2 express? One plan was to run the 7 on the 2 inner tracks and the shuttle on the 2 outer. But considering how busy both lines are, I believe separating the 2 was a good idea. And after the Flushing line opened, the ridership dropped about 25% on the shuttle. Yet both are still very busy. The route is short and inefficient, so I'd like to ask, are there better options? There were some creative ideas behind replacing the shuttle in the past century. For instance, several conveyor belts. One of these was proposed by Daniel L. Turner in 1922, hoping to completely redesign the shuttle. The goal of this was an accelerated walkway system, or commonly known as a moving sidewalk. Now, there are 2 common ways you can build a moving sidewalk. One of them is 2 separate, one-direction tracks. They're much easier to build, and nowadays they're practically pre-constructed. The idea was that you would start getting onto a platform moving 3 miles an hour, then transfer to a platform moving 6 miles an hour, and then get onto a final one moving 9 miles an hour. The fastest track would complete the trip one way in around 3 minutes. For comparison, the modern shuttle takes 1.5. The plan was eventually scrapped because of budget constraints, but there seemed to be a few holes in this idea. For starters, it was compared to an escalator design, but the outer layer was supposed to have chairs, and we know how with escalators it loops back from the top. So where would the benches go? And the platforms only move 9 miles an hour at max. I don't see how this could compete with a train. If you're planning to do more research after this video, this is the article I recommend. The whole idea is so wild that it's fascinating. The second option is a single loop of conveyor, which is virtually the same except the 2 ends. While harder to construct, it has the benefit of being able to hold objects like benches. This is the basis of the Carveyor plan, proposed in 1954 by the Goodyear Tire Company. Cabins would slow down to 1.5 miles an hour at each end to let passengers on, and then directly after the station, they would roll onto rollers that immediately speed the car up to 15 miles an hour. The half-mile trip would be done in just 2 minutes, at the end of which the car rolls onto a roller that slows it down. The idea is a fun, creative solution to the problem, but it lacks practicality. For starters, it's not handicap accessible, something not surprising, but also not helpful. The project was proposed to cost $3.9 million in 1954, or roughly $42 million in 2022, and somehow it still got the green light. It just never ended up happening though. The shuttle was the first line automated in New York. Let's discuss the origins of ATO, or automatic train operation. From 1962 to 1964, Track 4 of the shuttle was equipped with ATO. How'd it work? It used the relay, or defined as a switch that can open and close a circuit remotely. Each station would have a box of 24 relays, searching for an input. What's this input? That would be a punch tape feeding instructions. Each hole in the tape corresponded with a certain action. Since the whole system read off these strips, it had to work every single time. That meant the trains took the slower but safer route. This set of steps worked well for about 2 years, but unfortunately in April 1964, an automated train jumped the tracks, short-circuiting the entire shuttle service. Unfortunately, less than a week after this, a fire broke out on the non-automated Track 3, destroying one shuttle, all the wooden tracks, and the automation equipment for Track 4. At this point, the city government decided not to reinstate the automated shuttle program, and the tracks were just rebuilt. And it hasn't been back since. Trivia, or fun facts about the shuttle. The first of the city's subway car wrapping programs came out in 2008. This includes the 2 feet tall banners as well as the full body wraps. The application of the full body wrap will cost around $75,000, and that's not even including the brand. There's sort of an Easter egg regarding the track layout of the shuttle. If you look at a track layout map, you could see where the original line was and where the stations curve at each end. Nowadays, the curves are used to take the trains off the track. It's still possible to see this intersection if you're going on the 1, 2, or 3 uptown, and the workers have installed a bridge to cross the track. Quite possibly the largest change in the shuttle in over 100 years was the 2019 reconstruction. They removed Track 3 for good and expanded Tracks 1 and 4. Now 6 cars can fit on each track instead of the old 3-4-3 configuration. Along with station improvements, they made some dedicated R62A shuttle cars. They just removed the middle seats and added handrails, a great change for the overcrowded shuttle. And at some point during this, they added a better connection to the Grand Central Metro North. This was just before the East Side Access project was done. And lastly, because the original platform was curved, it needed platform edge fillers. I can't find a video of them on the shuttle, but you could still find them at 14th Street and Union Square and the old South Ferry Loop. Just based on how loud they are, removing them was a great decision. And let's talk about rolling stock. Since the shuttle was opened in 1918, they started with low V cars. Eventually those were modernized to R17s, and then later R22s in the 1950s. And finally in the late 1980s, they've added the R62As, which are the current fleet. Let me know which of these is your favorite. An unrelated detail is that the shuttle has 2 operators. Like you might expect, they switch off who drives. That's me trying to point out that the shuttle is still not automated. There's still the engineer and still the conductor. Hi, I've been working on this video for nearly 4 months, and while I hope you trust my research, I understand not everything will be correct. So, if you have any corrections, please let me know and I'll make a comment or a pinned thing in the description, and you can take a look at that. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Perfect.